Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 477. My opponent played e4, and I decided to play knight f6, attacking the pawn, Alekhine's defense. And now white answered in the most principled way, pushing on with e5. You can also just support the pawn with knight to c3 and get a kind of a Vienna game, I guess. Anyway, e5, and knight goes to d5. And d4, just supporting the center and building up. This is known as the modern variation after a couple more moves. Let's see, d6 and knight f3. All very logical. And let's see, the way I usually play it, which is also an interesting alternative, is to play c4 here, kicking the knight back and then trading on d6. And that is gives a little more space to white, so it gives a slight edge to white, but nothing huge. So knight f3 is an interesting way to play. Bishop to g4, pinning the knight. And now bishop to e2 is the main move here, just breaking the pin, defending the knight. And should be okay for white. Actually, the engine likes white quite a bit. So that's interesting. Bishop to c4 then maybe is a little bit inaccurate. I can just defend the knight with e6. And you might not think of this move if you're new to this position, but it helps a lot to actually get a pawn on d5 there if he trades and you take back with a pawn. It doesn't really matter that your d pawn is doubled because you're going to get rid of that d6 pawn by trading it for the e5 pawn. And you've gotten rid of this light squared bishop if he decides to take there. So just supporting the knight on that square with the pawn is a fine thing to do when it comes under attack for a bishop. No need to drop back to b6, which some people play kind of automatically. Okay, my opponent castled here. I play bishop to e7. He goes rook e1, and knight to c6, and knight to c3. So we're just getting our pieces out. And right here would be a good time for me to take. I didn't think of this move, but it looks like this leads to a pretty good position. Well, it's not just about the position. There's also some tactical ideas here. So just to show this, if I take, he takes, I can play the move knight to b4. This is kind of a funny idea, but I'm offering to trade queens and then grab the c-pawn here. So he needs to react to this threat. Bishop to d3 is the suggested move, but then I can grab the bishop pair. So already there's some interesting tactics in this position. I was a little bit oblivious to that. I didn't really think of this idea of just taking there. I played my knight back to b6, kicking his bishop, and he takes. And I took back with the pawn, so I have a little more center influence. I think if we back up, I think it's also possible to take with the bishop or the queen. Yeah, the engine likes taking with the pawn. Okay. Now he drops his bishop back to e2, and we get an okay position after this. But I really need to play the move d5. It's not so much about getting my pawn on that square as it is from preventing him from playing d5. When you see what happened in the game, I castled, and he gets in the move d5. This is really a good move from white. Just grabs more space, and after the trades, these I could have taken in either order, I guess. The knights come off, and the queen comes out to the square on d5, and now I've got a cramped structure and a weak d-pawn. So I think white has a pretty good edge here. Let's see. Oh, and right here I make the tactical mistake, the miscalculation I referred to in the video. So right here I played the move knight b4, and I was thinking, well, I realized I had two loose pieces, but I thought, well, if the queen comes back here to fork the two pieces, then I can play knight takes c2 anyway and fork the rook. So I thought I was getting away with this. Of course, after knight to b4, the queen has several moves that it can, several squares that it can go to, all of which defend c2, so defend against my threat. And not only that, this move queen e4 creates a lot of threats on his own. He's attacking the knight, he's attacking the bishop, and there's this potential battery in this direction as well. So queen e4 was a good move here, and I was really lucky to find, well, I wasn't lucky to find it. I found it by thinking, but I was lucky that there was an escape. Bishop takes f3. I can trade the bishop off with tempo. Now if he grabs the knight, I can just save my bishop, drop back to c6 or something. So he takes the bishop, and now I need to save the knight. And once again, he's got the multiple threats. The queen and the rook are in a battery hitting my bishop. The bishop and the queen are in a battery hitting the b2 pawn, and the queen is threatening my knight, which is loose. So it's a triple threat. And once again, I'm lucky that there is one move that solves all these problems, which is knight to c6. It blunts the battery, defends the bishop, and gets the knight out of trouble. So a single move dealing with 3 threats. Interesting. Okay, so my opponent, continuing in this tactical mode, pushed on with d4, but really this is time for him to switch gears. The tactics have kind of dried up in this position. He can't really push it forward anymore, and I think he could just continue with maybe some strengthening moves. I like the move c3 here, which Chess Engine lists as one of the options. Queen d5 also, just sitting on the pawn, and then later developing his bishop. The point of c3 is to blunt any attack I have on the c file, and then maybe bishop to f4 going after the pawn. And white has a good game here. But he played b4, and just trying to immediately win tactically by chasing the knight away. I realized when the knight moves that I'm going to have a loose pawn on b7, so I moved my rook. Wanted to get the rook off of that diagonal too. He pushes on with b5, and then this was my idea to blunt the attack on my bishop with the knight. So I've closed off this file momentarily. So he plays bishop h5, threatening f4 to chase my knight away. If the knight goes to g6, he can trade it and win the bishop. But there's time now for me to get my bishop out. And so these attacking moves, that when he continued playing tactically, they didn't work out for him in terms of gaining material, and they've weakened his structure. So actually, he's given away the advantage that he had earlier. Now it's about an even game once again. So he continues rook b1. I push on with d5. Finally, getting my pawn one step further. I feel a little bit better. I have a little more breathing room here. He drops back to e3. Now I wonder if I could have just pushed on with d4 immediately. Well, I wanted to do something about these pawns over here on the queen side. The interesting thing is the Chess Engine is ignoring the threat to a7 here and just wants to play rook e8, which is a nice normal developing move, putting the rook on an open file opposite the opponent's queen. But I played b6 to save my pawns. He goes bishop to b2 here, so that's a bit of a mistake maybe. Well, it's all about the same. Bishop to b2. And now I have knight to c4, hitting his bishop and his queen. And but he has a way out. He takes my bishop here with a tempo on my queen. And now I don't have time to take his queen. I've got to deal with this threat. And his queen goes to d3. And so once again, it's about even. So he's attacking my pawn, so I bring a rook out to defend it. Bishop back to f3, ganging up on the d-pawn. And once again allowing a knight fork. So he's if he hadn't played that, at that point I start to get an advantage. What's another option? Just dropping the queen back to d1, playing rook to b3, activating a rook. Okay, so this move is not so great because once again there's this fork, and this time it's not just a trade. After queen a3, I can just trade on f3, and I mean it's not just a trade because it also damages his pawn structure. He either has to take with the pawn, or if he takes with the queen, I can trade queens, and has kind of a messy structure there. I didn't play that immediately. Actually, I didn't even play that in the game. I pushed on with d4. I was thinking of targeting this backward c pawn, but he can just defend it with bishop to e4. So that's white is really okay here. He played queen takes a7 instead, and once again I can get a winning position by taking on f3, and this time I even get to keep the queen. So there's this nice sequence here. Knight takes, pawn takes, and then queen to g6 check, not grabbing this pawn immediately, but forking the king and the c pawn. And then after I grab this pawn, I'll have a passed d pawn, and I can threaten to promote that. So I'll be in good shape, and that's the best way to continue here. I just played rook b to c8, piling up on the c pawn. Once again, he can defend with bishop to e4, and the game would continue. It's in the range of about even, although the Chess Engine prefers white a bit there. But my opponent ran out of time at this point, so I ended up winning the game anyway. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Interesting back and forth game. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.